Dronowski, publisher of Yankee News, coming to you this Monday, April 29th, the year of our Lord 2024. So before I start, I have what I consider exciting news. So, you know, we've promoted Sally Fink and the Continental Tribune every week. Now, originally, she had a hard copy issued that she was putting out called the Connecticut Sentinel. Well, we'll avoid that story. She ended up changing the name to the Continental Tribune. And now, at long last, here we go. She has now come out with a new hard copy edition. Go, Sally, go. That's what I say. So I think it's going to be a monthly. And yeah, it's going to be the same hard-hitting journalism that she is so good at. Okay. Meantime, do go to our website, yankeet.news. Like, subscribe, donate, buy our stuff, and tell everybody. And of course, there's Bob McGuffey's campaign for Congress. Make sure you donate. Go to Bob Mac for Congress. And tonight's theme, the slow, slow unwinding of the lies. You'll see that theme kind of pop up here and there throughout some of the stories tonight. Okay, we'll start with the quickie. Of course, we now call him Lumberjack Lamont. And it just gets me. It's like the worst kind of striptease, where first we hear about these trees that were cut down on his property. Then we hear about the town dealing with him back in March or so. And then we find out that the trees were cut down late last year. This kind of, you know, stripping away the layers of time to get to the original story is usually a form of dishonesty as far as I'm concerned. Well, in any event, so the big problem has been it was Lamont, his neighbor the Vicks, the neighborhood association, and I think there might have been one other group. When they cut down the trees, they crossed into the property of somebody else, it's other property owned by ITCL, I think. And we don't know who that is because the ownership of that LLC is well hidden. So in any event, throughout all of this, as of April 26th, the governor has not said a word about something for which he is clearly responsible. So guess what? He has a new name. His name is Governor Gutless. That's right, Governor Gutless. Next, boy, there's an emerging problem, shall we say, concerning the management of early voting in Connecticut. And my question is, what could possibly go wrong? So already they're arguing about money. They haven't really talked as much about manpower, which gets to training. If the training is not well done, a lot of this early voting will be screwed up in one fashion or another. So yeah, my question remains the same. Early voting in Connecticut, now you're asking for more money because these towns are not ready to handle it. What could possibly go wrong? Okay. Tucker Carlson, for this next story, raised a very key point. And I say this in spite of the fact that when Mike Johnson became the Speaker of the House, right off the bat, I believe he read a passage or two from the Bible, but he's turned out to be a horrible, horrible Speaker of the House. So the way he's acted, the things that he has done, the things he's failed to do, earn him the title weak person. That's right, Mike Johnson, weak person. And the problem is that weak people, in Tucker's view, become a host for evil. And given the things that he has allowed to go by the board, because he's obviously been captured by the Democrats, and who knows, the communist Chinese for all that it matters. So he remains ineffectual, and he remains a servant of them, the evil ones. So there's more about it to lead. Anyway, move on to the next story. So in Scotland, we have a little event going on. They passed a hate crime law that's probably more strict than others. And already the people who have pushed this have been hoisted on their own petard, all right? And I don't have the name of the gentleman in front of me, but so he has had to resign because, well, let's just say that the matters concerning this hate crime law are not exactly working out as expected. So we have that up. You can go check it out. Meantime, what I would call the top story tonight was an article in, I think, the Washington Times, where they were talking about the idea, once again, that there could be an American Civil War. Now, we know there was this Democrat wet dream of a movie that came out about an American Civil War. They created their own scenario around it. But none of this takes stock of the real problems that we see in front of us. We have all kinds of people of ill intent who have been allowed freely into this country. So they're forming up, they're developing their connections, they're gathering their resources, they're making their plans. It's only a matter of time, ladies and gentlemen, okay? And what is this going to do in terms of affecting the already tenuous relationships that we have with each other around the country? It's not good. So I'll move on to the next thing here. Employers' message to the Ivy Leagues. Harvard sucks. We are hiring from other schools, thank you very much. So it's a very interesting article in which employers are beginning to indicate, especially because of these recent Hamas protests, they're not interested in hiring people from the Ivy Leagues. So those folks, for all the money they've spent, for all the favors they pulled, for all the crap they pulled to get into those schools, they're going to find them on the raw end of the deal when they're looking for a job. And they kind of did it to themselves, okay? So this article lists 20 of the colleges and universities around the country from which employers will be taking a closer look for their new hires. So have at. My personal favorite, USC. Okay, next there's a Twitter piece on about 2 minutes that very quickly goes through 25 different ways to destroy America. It will all sound very familiar, but it's a very quick piece, and it it puts it in broad relief for you. Next, well, what do you know? Okay, this is a lawsuit, in the UK. It's AstraZeneca being sued for its vaccine, and they have conceded, I love the concession, they have conceded that, you know what, yeah, there might be some rare cases where our vaccine can cause harm. All right, let's just call that the first of many admissions to come when they finally have to confront all the other data that's been compiled. So, speaking of all the other data that's been compiled, I get to segue to the next key piece. God bless Dr. Naomi Wolf. She continues to make the rounds. And you have to remember, ladies, by the way, dailyclout.io, that's her website, dailyclout.io. Go there and learn and buy their stuff, their books. The work they have done is fantastic. You need to remember, okay, that all those things she says, all those startling claims, all those amazing statistics, they're not made up. They're derived directly. I'm going to say it again for emphasis, directly from Pfizer's data, okay? So it's Pfizer. This is the data they wanted to hide for 75 years. So Naomi Wolf and her people got on it, and they worked their way through those 55,000 pages, and they pulled out the truth. So now she goes around and reminds us the high miscarriage rates, the high infant mortality, the kids that are sick in the most horrible way, even if they do survive. It's just, it's just horrible. Okay, so in any event, go check her out again. Next thing, oh wait, haven't we been talking about how Joe Biden is a real crook and involved in a lot of corruption? Well, it looks like we've got one more, okay? His good old brother, I believe that's Jim Biden, apparently has been involved with some health venture deals with the Qatari government. And again, his brother is just serving as a conduit for the criminal activity of Joe Biden. And so it's there, go check it out. Now, this keeps coming up. I just want to make this point first, okay? If you take inflation, you take overspending, you take the interest rates, all right? So the normal explanation is that the government continues to print money at an ever-accelerating pace, which is going to drive inflation, right? Yet we have reports that it's coming down. So how can you have all this overspending and still see inflation coming down? There is an explanation. Meantime, you have the Fed presumably trying to keep a lid on this with raising interest rates. Well, we've hit a stretch now where those rates have not risen. However, the bond market, has been going up and down and responding to the news of the market. All right, so we are missing one other piece of the puzzle. You want to know what that piece is? It's the banks. Now, this point has been made before. When all the spending is done, all that money has to go someplace. So where does it go? It goes to the big banks. And what do? What they're supposed to do is use that money to give out loans and do whatever else they do for the economy. Well, guess what? They're not spending much of it. So in other words, they've received these vast quantities of money, but it's not being put to use, okay? So the bank is serving as something of a brake on all these other things that are going on. Hopefully I can find more and better data on this. This is a factor I want you to consider when we think about all the bad news that's going on with our economy. And yes, you can say that unemployment is down, wages are under control, inflation isn't that bad. We know the housing prices are going up. There's evidence that rents are going to start coming down. Speaking of which, another article I'm going to work on is, can rents reduce inflation? Radical thought. All right, so there's that for you. We've got 2 articles on this. Go check it out. Now, Glenn Beck, occasionally comes up with things that just really hit the mark, and we really need to pay attention. So here he's talking about how to, quote, defeat what I'll call leftist hypnotism. And the message from Mr. Beck is very simple. Remember who you are. If you're a Christian, remember your Christianity. If you're Jewish, remember your Jewishness, okay? If you're an Italian American, remember your Italian Americanness. If you're an American, remember that you're an American. That means be mindful that we have this thing called the Constitution. There are all these principles that apply to it. And with it, we have these traditions, whether it's Columbus Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, you name it, Memorial Day. All of those traditions are part of remembering who we are. So you don't want to lose them, all right? The problem is leftists want to get rid of those things, all right? So you have to understand the way in which they talk about this. I got to quickly find the quote in particular. But the point is that when they keep talking about change, basically for the sake of change, and they're trying to suggest that, you need change every so often, that somehow life is going to be better. Well, guess what? That's not necessarily true. And getting them to admit it, good luck. So here, this was the words of Michelle Obama, if I may. Barack knows we will have to make sacrifices. We're going to have to change our conversation. We will have to change our traditions, our history. We will have to move into a different place as a nation to provide the kind of future that we all want. Okay, there's a lot to unpack in that statement. First of all, she thinks that what we have right now in place won't provide us with the future we want. Maybe you're wrong, Michelle. Okay, and this notion, why do you refer to it as sacrifices? Okay, no, you don't just erase almost 250 years of history just like that. No, it doesn't happen like that, all right? And we're not buying it. And the more we understand what you're doing, the more we're going to fight it. Another juicy one, just to throw it in quickly. Now we're learning about how these states have been hornswoggled and changing their flags. And it turns out that they're swapping out the 5-point star of America with an 8-point star that represents Islam. This has happened in Minnesota. It almost happened in Utah. There are other states and towns in which they're considering this. A silly little thing like that has to be put back to. But anyway, the take-home message, remember who you are. Plain and simple. All right, now, the next thing here, where did I go? Bear with me here, bear with me. Okay, the U.S. birth rate is an all-time low, 3.6 births per million. No, that can't be right. Let me find the number here. 3.6 million babies were born last year, lowest in 45 years. All right, what's the part that's not being spoken here echoes back to the things that Dr. Naomi Wolf has been saying. The COVID shot has clearly had a dramatic negative impact on fertility in this country. We haven't even talked about the impact on male fertility, and there's a whole other discussion there. So to you, the audience, I say go look at this, look at what Naomi has said, dailyclout.io, and learn, because we really need to understand this. Meantime, here's the one that should get all liberals upset. I'll start with the headline. Religious school kids are way more tolerant and informed than public schoolers. Personally, I'm not surprised. Okay, what's notable about this, quote, study is that it's what you would call a meta-analytic study. In other words, it's a study of studies. And in this case, they compiled 57 international studies relating to religion, religious schools and secular schools. And they found unquestionably that religious school kids outclass the public school kids when it comes to such things as tolerance, general knowledge, as well as being well informed. So check it out, it's important. Meantime, so as we focus again on the January 6th segment, which we continue to follow, there are two parts. One is the immunity hearing that's going on in the Supreme Court is still unresolved. And Julie Kelly, who's been following this area for a long time, basically feels, in her judgment, that the outcome is still hanging in the balance. But one thought, and I think it's the logical one, is that this case will get kicked back to Judge Chutkan's office or court. And the point is that they're going to have to spell out in detail those things which constitute the province, if you will, personal matters for a president, and those things which are matters of the state with the president, which remain not subject to prosecution. All right, so we'll see if that's what happens. Meantime, the other thing that's really disturbing, I mean, the dishonesty is amazing. So, okay, the term is sedition hunters, okay? This is this, quote, network that's supposedly been formed where they're trying to find all these other people they want to arrest who were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. It's pretty disgusting because they forget, they don't want to look at the fact that the federal government was involved. Looks like the FBI might have pushed some of this. Some of the Capitol Police were suckered into this. We have tapes saying that much to effect. It's clear that there was a lot of pre-planning by federal elements to entrap Americans. So when are we going to get to that one? That's what I would like to know. But in the meantime, now you have this scam going called Sedition Hunters, a network trying to find people that they can report to the FBI, all right? So we got the link there, check it out. There are other sources to go to. My final comment is it's just astonishing how there is still this huge split in perception between those who still think that January 6th was an insurrection and those who know that it was about the election. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week.